Joe Burrow spent a lot of time in the press conference talking about Jermaine Burton. So we'll get to that coming up here shortly. Jermaine Burton seems to have a huge following of Bengals fans that are clamoring for more Jermaine Burton. So we'll get to that shortly. Or should we get to that now? What do you want to do? You want to get to
Let's
that
do
now?
that.
Let's do that now? Okay, cool. We'll get to that now. So, pivoting. I like it. There we go.
I like a pivot.
But no, so Joe Burrow yesterday in the press conference, addressing the media and spent a lot of time talking, of course, about Jermaine Burton. Before we dive more into that, take a listen. Here's Joe Burrow talking about Jermaine Burton yesterday during the press conference.
What's your challenge for Jermaine Burton from this point forward, Joe?
Yeah, take the next step. He played great last week. That was awesome to see. His demeanor has been great. He wants to get better. He wants to improve. It's exciting to see him be a part of. I think he take the next step with his knowledge of the game plan, his knowledge of the defense, his knowledge of the offense, the minute details of each route. I think Jermaine's going to be a really good player.
He thinks Jermaine's going to be a really great player. In the limited time that we've seen Jermaine out there, he's actually made quite a few big catches and quite a few big plays, but it's been very limited. Not the big plays, but the opportunities. And that's what continues to be the big question mark. Before Tee Higgins went down, the big question was, is this team too Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins centric? And a lot of that is not really by design, but more so because no one else has stepped up to be that dominant number 3 option to kind of help spread the rock a little bit. And everyone's like, well, what about Jermaine Burton? Not even giving him the chance. You're continuously pushing the same cast of characters that aren't delivering consistently throughout the first 8 games of the season. Why wouldn't you? Tee Higgins goes down last Friday, heading into the Eagles matchup. Jermaine Burton gets quite a few opportunities, capitalizes on that opportunity, but still not enough opportunity. And people have had enough. They want more. I do find it very odd. That was just a short clip. Jacob, you and I talked before the show. Yeah. There was about a 3-minute clip where Burrow just went on and on and on about his view and perception of Jermaine Burton and what he means to this team now and big picture.
We've seen more out of Jermaine Burton on 5 targets than we have out of any of the other third wide receivers in terms of excitement. I mean, I know Andre Yoshivas has many more yards and more catches and obviously the touchdowns, but how many times have we talked about that his inability to get open in standard plays on running routes? And Jermaine Burton, I know he only has the 2 catches on the season for about 80 yards, but man, there's a lot of plays of him getting open downfield and the ball just not going his direction, which is completely fine. And I'm not blaming Joe Burrow. I'm not saying he needs to be locked in on Jermaine Burton on a lot of these plays, but it's just proof that outside of just the 2 catches that he's made, he has the ability to do more than just run a straight line. And he's shown that at least a little bit. And to hear Joe Burrow go out there and endorse him basically for about 3.5, 4 minutes about the separation he's able to create off man coverage, the stuff that he provides that none of the other third wide receiver options provide in this offense, and how he wants to see him out there more, it validates me and a lot of other Bengals fans that have been saying a lot of the same things from watching the backside of it and the limited practice clips and the limited film you are able to see of Jermaine Burton and saying he looks good. Seeing Joe Burrow say the same thing about practice and a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff is great to hear, because all we've heard about Jermaine Burton is that he's not high on the depth chart because of mental issues or not taking it seriously or not working hard enough. If that's the case, your quarterback's not sitting there for 4 minutes and endorsing you to get more playing time. So I think a lot of that stuff's out the window for me. I think this kind of goes back to the classic Bengals mindset of not playing young guys until they earn it. And I think at this point, whether Jermaine Burton's earned it or not, we've seen that he's probably the best option, or at least the most exciting option. And sitting at 3 and 5, you have to see what you have in him, with Tee Higgins being prepared to leave, and he needs to get more reps.
When you said, are the Bengals too T and Jamar centric? Yes, but when they play together, it doesn't matter because you have them there and they're able to go. If you have 2 elite pass catchers, you can supplement the rest of your targets and receptions, spread them out among, I don't want to call it the bottom of the barrel, but it's the Eric Alls and the Yoshivases and maybe a couple to Mike Gesicki here and there, when those 2 are healthy. But when one of them is gone, then it becomes abundantly clear that just having an offense that revolves around those 2 isn't going to work. It's not going to be a fruitful offense. So I would have Jermaine Burton play significant snaps starting this Sunday. You're playing the Raiders. It's not a good team. It's good practice for him, if anything. And if Tee Higgins certainly isn't ready to go, then I don't understand why he doesn't see more reps.
And it's not even like he has to take all of Tee Higgins' snaps either. I mean, Mike Gesicki filled in pretty decently for him
Yeah.
since he's been out. So I want to see more Jermaine Burton. The one thing I took away from what Joe Burrow said was that he does things that you can't teach. And that's separation. That's the hand fighting. That's a lot of the separation conversation that we have that our receivers, besides T and Joe or Jamar, struggle with tremendously. So I feel like that was Joe kind of saying, like, maybe he's not all the way 100% knowledgeable of the playbook, but he's too good not to have out there. And that's what I feel like we've been advocating for a while with this guy. And I'm glad that we're maybe stepping in the right direction, because it wasn't just Joe that said that he was going to get more playing time. I think even Dan Pitcher said something like that as well, that he deserved more playing time. Zach Taylor, I believe, even said something similar to that note as well. So I expect to see him out there a lot versus the Raiders. And I hope that we get to see him targeted quite a few times.
I'm willing to bet he'll be the third highest receiver in snap count. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to put him in over Yoshivas. I have faith, because I don't know what you're waiting for at this point. Because if you were waiting for an endorsement from some of the players, you got it. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, what are you waiting for if you're Zach Taylor? Because we've seen time and time again that Charlie Jones was out there for 15 snaps and didn't even get a target. Why is he getting any snaps? Burton, I know, got over 20 snaps, which was the most he's had on the season by far. Hopefully that keeps trending up. If not this week, hopefully next week or the week after, he's able to surpass Yoshi as that third wide receiver on the team. It's all going to come down to whether he runs the right routes and knows whether he's on the field or not, because there's only so many gimmick plays and stuff you can do. There's only so much expectation you can put on Joe Burrow to call a play in the huddle and then tell Jermaine Burton where to line up and run a route. So as long as he gets all that stuff down, I think he'll be the wide receiver 3. But even if he doesn't, he needs to play more.
Yeah, and I guess we'll have this conversation if it happens, if he plays really well this upcoming week, about why it took so long for this to finally come to fruition. Because I really, you have to really look at this coaching staff and how much they've struggled this season with, and actually really just this whole tenure of this team. They've really struggled to develop young guys, young talent that weren't top 5 picks in the draft like Joe and Jamar was. I think I'm hoping for the best, and I'm not going to go down this route yet, but it's something to look at.
Yeah.
If Jermaine Burton plays really well this upcoming week, I'm going to have some serious questions for this coaching staff moving forward. Very serious questions.
It's a weird spot for them to be in, because you have to play Burton because he's proving that he's good enough to play. And if you play him and he makes an immediate impact, what were you doing for the first 8 weeks of the season?
Exactly.
So it's a tough spot for this coaching staff to be in, but at this point you have to save the season and play the better players and swallow your pride.
Yep, and it's like you guys talked. It's one thing, too, if T's healthy, and you're just making the argument about the number 3 spot. But with T, he didn't practice yesterday either. Mm-hmm. Don't know what the status for him. I mean, do you guys think he plays?
I don't.
So if he's not playing, that's even more reason to be clamoring for more of Jermaine Burton in this particular situation.
I just think the Bengals believe that they can beat the Raiders without Tee Higgins, and you're going to hold him out and make sure he's 100% for that Ravens game.
Raven on a short week.
Yep.
On top of that, that's wild that that's coming up.
I know.
I mean, a week from tonight, Thursday Night Football, that's a big one. I mean, I don't know how many times we've said this, the Bengals season's on the line, but I do feel like, you got to beat the Raiders. But the 2024 season is on the line a week from tonight when they play the Ravens, because you lose to the Ravens, that's it. At that point, I'm out on Cincinnati. Even if they beat the Raiders and lose to the Ravens next week, I'm out on the Bengals, because beating all the bad teams is great, but you've yet to prove you could beat a good team. And at that point, that's another AFC loss, and you're basically, you've pretty much said their playoff chances are pretty shot to begin with.
Yeah.
But that would almost make it impossible at that point with the second loss against Baltimore a week from today. But they got to get through the Raiders first. Probably going to be without T, as you guys talked about.
Week by week.
But for more from that press conference yesterday, reporters had asked Joe Burrow his thoughts on, hey, Joe, do you pay attention to what the Bills are doing? I'm going to get Amari Cooper. If you paid attention to the Jets, going to get Devontae Adams. The Chiefs, they get a nice piece on both sides of the ball. They keep adding to their roster. And Joe Burrow just very short, very quick, and probably the best answer you can give, but also giving more than one answer. It's not my job. Every time they would ask him about the other teams making moves, it's not my job. I don't know. It just seemed very short, and that's the one answer he gave that he seemed a little impatient with. Not my job.
I don't know how you want him to respond to it, because it's like, hey, are you paying attention to all the other franchises that are making moves and trying, and you see all the other teams that are winning? Like he could then go say, yeah, and I wish that was us. It would be a bad look because it seems like he's calling out his team. So he answered it as well as he could from a PR standpoint. At least that's what I took away. It's better. Listen, I'll take those answers than whatever the hell's going on with the Colts, and nobody knows how to answer those questions. So I'll take the I'm good. I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job.
I took that. I took it, just the tone and the way he said it and the way he answered the other questions. I took it as, I'm doing my job. That's not my job. Those people need to do their job.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. I'm doing what I'm asked to do, and there's a lot of people in this building that are not doing their job.
That's how I felt too. I don't know why. It was just the tone, and because he like
was
you said,
upbeat.
he was short. He was
Yeah.
kind of impatient about it. It's not his job, and he's right. It's not his job to make the team better.
Right.
But there's a guy in the building that said that he's refusing to make other teams better to make his team better. Doesn't make sense.